When the wedding invitation arrived, it lay in the mailbox like a blatant mockery, addressed with the name of another woman. They hadn't invited me, the father, only the bride's grandmother, whom they were obliged to be civil to. I still recall the wind slamming against the window the night I wrote that letter, a promise never sent, an invisible weight I'd carried for 30 years. William lived a quiet life in the old wooden house on the edge of town, where the smell of dried leaves and decay permeated everything. His daughter, Anna, had become a stranger long ago, a shadow in the faded photographs tucked away in a drawer. Her wedding was approaching, an extravagant event he only heard about through the hushed whispers of neighbors. Anna was the spitting image of her mother, but her eyes held a coldness her mother never possessed, a frigidity nurtured by his absence. William was alone, companioned by silence and one single thing, an old, worn envelope, carefully hidden since the very last night of his wife. The kettle hadn't whistled yet, but I could already feel the house listening. It was a Thursday morning. Fog still clung to the window panes, blurring the world outside. In this kitchen, everything was old and familiar, like a slow breath. I was standing there, looking at the cold stone countertop. I wasn't expecting anything. My life had become a series of days without expectations attached. That made everything easier. Quiet. There was only the slow, drawn-out ticking of the wall clock, which seemed to be measuring the silence instead of time. And then, the frantic, hurried thud of feet on the gravel road outside. Not the neighbor's footsteps. Too rushed. I knew it was the postman. He always left an unnecessary urgency trailing behind him. A metal clatter. The mailbox outside. He didn't ring the bell. Never. I stepped out of the kitchen. The floor creaked beneath my feet as if remembering my weight over the years. I picked up the mail. Bills. Advertisements. And a large parcel. It weighed more than a normal letter. Square, wrapped in good quality paper. There was a sense of something important and unnecessary in the way it was packaged. I carried it inside, placing it on the oak dining table my wife, Sarah, had bought 30 years ago. The font on the sticker was elegant, cursive. It was Anna's. I didn't open it right away. I sat down in my accustomed chair. The chair shuddered slightly under my weight. My hand ran lightly over the corner of the parcel. The wrapping paper was rough. It smelled like a department store, the scent of new paper and luxury. I wondered why it had been sent. She never sent me anything. Then, I turned it over. I saw the recipient's name. Not William. It was Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Mrs. Eleanor Vance. Anna's maternal grandmother. My estranged mother-in-law. The woman I had only met at Sarah's funeral and during the brief legal skirmishes afterward. A coldness ran down my spine, but it wasn't surprise. It was exclusion formalized. They hadn't invited me. They invited the bride's grandmother, whom they were obliged to be civil to maintain the family appearance. I took a small knife from the drawer. Slowly, I sliced a clean line along the seam of the wrapping paper. The sound of the paper tearing was the only sound in the room. Inside was a small box, cream-colored. And inside the box was the invitation card. It was thick. Good quality. The gold trim sparkled lightly under the dim kitchen light. I opened it. Anna's name and her fiancé's name. The name of his family hosting. No line reserved for the father. No line handwritten to explain. No sign of a mistake. It was completely, absolutely silent. The feeling was not a burst of anger. It was like a fractured bone settling in silence. I put the invitation down. I used my finger to gently trace the embossed lettering. Anna grew up without me. That was the cold truth I had accepted long ago. But I was still her father. I tried to search my memory. 3 years ago. The last time I saw her, it was at a small cafe downtown. I had tried. I wrote to her, saying I wanted to see her. She had agreed coldly. I arrived early. I watched her walk in, her dark, sleek hair, carrying her mother's coat. In that moment, she was completely Sarah. She chose a table in the corner, away from the window. We talked. About her job. About my absence. Every one of my statements was met with cold precision. No inflection. Only facts. You made choices, Dad, she had said. And those choices come with consequences. I remember asking, my voice hoarse, do you think I didn't love your mother, Anna? She didn't look into my eyes. She looked at her coffee cup. Steam dissipated into the air. I think you chose to run away from the difficult things, instead of staying for the important things. That difference. Running away and staying. It pierced me like a shard of glass. We parted civilly, no hug, no promises. I thought I could fix it. I thought time and patience would soften the ice. But this invitation, it was the conclusion. It was the proof. She had decided. I stood up, walking to the window. The fog had lifted. The sunlight now was harsher, exposing the dust on the window sill. Why did she do this? Why did the rejection have to be so public and absolute? Was my absence my only sin? I left after Sarah died. I couldn't stay in the house full of her breath. I couldn't be the single father Anna needed. But I sent money. I wrote letters. I never truly vanished. Or was there something else that happened, something Sarah did or said before she died, which made Anna believe my absence was a betrayal? That feeling beneath my ribs. Not pain, but the emptiness of an unanswered question. I once asked Sarah, the night before she went into the hospital. Are you happy? She smiled, a faint smile, and said, I have a wonderful life, William. Never doubt that. But what if there was something she couldn't say, something she held back, wanting to protect me, or protect Anna? I turned back, staring at the cream-colored invitation. This card is not the end. It's a clue. It forces me to go back and rummage through the things I buried in the silence of grief. It's like a whisper, go look. There is something your daughter doesn't know, and neither do you. I chose to run away. Now, this card forces me to return and confront. I walked into the living room. Standing before the old glass cabinet. On the third shelf, there was a photograph. Anna, aged 6, beaming, holding a cloth doll. Behind her was Sarah, with sparkling eyes and a warm smile. I looked at that smile. That happiness. It was real. But this card, it says there's a crack lying deeper than the surface of that happiness. I need evidence. Something forgotten. Something only Sarah knew, and told Anna. I know where to look for it. In the attic, in Sarah's wooden box. It has been there, untouched, for 30 years. I walked out of the living room, the dim light fading behind me. The house became quiet again. The clock was still ticking. But now, it was measuring the weight. I have to go up there, where the dust holds all that remains of her. I have to find the key to decipher this coldness. The stairs to the attic were a betrayal. Every step I took produced a loud, drawn-out groan, echoing in the afternoon silence. The light up there was different. It wasn't light. It was golden dust suspended, illuminated through a small, grimy windowpane. This place hadn't been touched in years. It was where time did not pass, but simply settled. The air was heavy. It smelled like dry wood, forgotten, and a hint of an old winter. This smell always brought back the day Sarah died. I had to breathe deeply. I wasn't up here to cry. I was up here to search. The attic was a graveyard of unfinished things. A dismantled crib. The books I had promised myself to read. Furniture draped in white sheets, standing like silent ghosts. Sarah's box lay in the farthest corner, under a thick shell of dust. It was a small wooden box, made of dark oak, secured with a tiny copper lock. I remembered Sarah kept the key in the pocket of her favorite wool coat. I knelt down. My knees creaked. I reached out to brush the dust from the box's surface. Dust wasn't dirt. Dust was the tiny fragments of the past. When I pulled the old cloth away, the box was revealed. The wood was smooth. I caressed it. I didn't remember where I had put the key. Perhaps I never had it. But then, I remembered. Sarah had once said, "If you truly need it, William, you'll find the key where you always look for comfort." Comfort. For me, that had always been the kitchen. And my chair. I went downstairs. This time, I moved slower. Back in the kitchen. I flipped my chair over. Under the worn upholstery, a tiny copper key, secured with old masking tape. I smiled. A faint smile, without sound. That was Sarah. Always playing a little game. I returned to the attic. Inserting the key into the lock. It fit immediately, a small, distinct click. I opened the box lid. Inside, there was no jewelry or money. Only small items, worthless to outsiders. An old hairpin. A lost button. And, beneath a thin layer of cream-colored silk, was an envelope. It was the only envelope in the box. It stood out. The white envelope was yellowed, thin, and frayed at the corners. No stamp, no address. Sarah's handwriting. That was her signature, the delicate lines, slightly slanted to the right. It was dated, Tuesday, October 14th. Sarah died on Thursday. 2 days later. I took the envelope out. It was unexpectedly light. I brought it to my nose. It had a scent. A very faint smell of dried lavender and an old perfume Sarah had stopped using long ago. It was the smell of presence and absence all at once. I hadn't sent it. I hadn't found it. I had buried this box because I couldn't bear to touch her things. My hands trembled as I pulled the edge of the letter open. There was no seal. It was merely folded. Inside was a thin sheet of paper, written in blue ink. The content was not a farewell. Not a final message of love. It was a confession. It began, "William, you'll never forgive me for this." I read it. Sitting on the dusty floor. The afternoon's golden light shone on my face, exposing every wrinkle. The confession wasn't about a physical deception. It was about a deception of words. Sarah wrote that in her final weeks, an old friend, one I didn't trust, had visited her. That friend told Sarah vile things about me, about a business deal I hastily canceled after she fell ill. That friend told Sarah that I had chosen work instead of caring for her, and that my absence was the proof. Sarah had tried to protect me. She had told Anna that my leaving after the funeral was because I couldn't cope with the grief. A half-truth. But in this letter, Sarah wrote that she had uttered something terrible to Anna. In a moment of pain and panic, she had said, "Your father had the chance to stay, Anna. But he didn't." That phrase. He didn't. It was a profound misunderstanding fueled by concealment. Sarah tried to correct it, writing that I was the most loving husband. But she died before she could send it, leaving a final, misunderstood statement in Anna's mind. Anna's coldness. The rejection. Her resentment wasn't about my absence, but about the belief that I had betrayed her mother. I sank down. Not from the pain, but from the clarity. My loneliness was caused by a forgotten box and a lie a wife tried to retract with her final breath. The secret, Anna thought I chose to abandon her mother. This letter, it's not just an alibi. It's Sarah's soul. I gripped the paper tightly. It was too fragile. It held too much weight. I stood up, brushing the dust from my clothes. The box was still open. The key was still in the lock. I went down the stairs. This time, there was no groan. I walked with determination. I was no longer the William of the morning. The man excluded, the man estranged. I was the man with the truth in his hand. I placed the letter on the kitchen table. The light shone on it. It was no longer an old object. It was a weapon. A justification. But it was the word of the dead. Was it strong enough to erase 30 years of belief? I smoothed the paper out. I wouldn't do this for myself. I would do this for Sarah. And for Anna. I have to send this letter. Exactly as was originally intended, even if it's 30 years late. I folded the letter, carefully, as if it were a delicate butterfly, and I knew I had to take it where it belonged. The paper lay flattened on the countertop. It was small in size. But its weight. I felt as if it was pressing down on the entire house. The sunlight had shifted, now casting a cold, white stripe across the floor. I sat there, my fingers tracing Sarah's blue ink strokes. Her handwriting was like a whisper. I had read it the first time in a panic. Now, I read it a second time, trying to grasp the rhythm. William, you'll never forgive me for this. She wasn't apologizing for something she had done wrong to me. She was apologizing for something she had done to Anna. It wasn't a deception of action. It was a deception of silence. The letter spoke of Sarah's friend, Elaine. I remember Elaine. She was always an unpleasant person, always wanting to know what she shouldn't know. Elaine had visited Sarah in the hospital. She told Sarah about the night I hastily sold off my small company. I did it for the money. To cover the medical expenses. So Sarah wouldn't have to worry. I told Sarah it was a good deal. A piece of luck. But Elaine, she fabricated another story. She told Sarah that I sold it quickly because I was tired of the illness. That I wanted a fresh start, without Sarah. That was horrible. I squeezed the paper tight. Sarah wrote that she didn't believe Elaine. She didn't believe it. But Sarah was weak then. She was lonely. She wrote, I didn't believe her. But her words planted a seed. I wasn't strong enough to fight the doubt. She accepted that doubt. And then, Anna came. Anna was 15 then. She was hurting. She saw me absent, always outside taking care of business. Sarah wrote that Anna cried, asking, why does Dad leave like that? Doesn't he want to be here with you, Mom? That was the moment. The moment of weakness. Sarah couldn't tell the truth. Your father is selling everything to save my life. She felt it was a burden. She felt she had failed me. And instead of protecting me, she protected herself. She said, your father had the chance to stay, Anna. But he didn't. Just that one sentence. He didn't. It wasn't a complete lie. But it was a truth twisted out of shape. Anna grew up with that belief. That I had chosen to escape the responsibility. I read that line. I felt as if I were being slapped by an invisible hand. Anna wasn't cold. She was hurting. She felt betrayed by both her father and her mother. Her mother had confirmed her worst fear. I read it a third time. Sarah's voice seemed to resonate in my mind, not the loving voice I remembered, but her panicked, self-justifying voice. The letter continued, I tried to tell her, William. I called her back. But she was already gone. And after that, I was too weak. I couldn't explain. This is the truth, William. I love you. I loved you. Don't let Anna believe what I said in my weakness. She needs to know you were there. Always there. She died with the intention of sending this letter. The intention to erase the wound. But the box was buried. And the last thing Anna heard was Sarah's false confession. This letter changes everything. It's not about my regret. It's about my innocence and Sarah's complexity. She was a mother. She was a wife. She was a human. She made a mistake. What does this mean for me? I could take this letter, go to Anna's wedding, and say, I am innocent. Your mother was wrong. Would that hurt Anna more? It would force her to confront not only my absence, but her mother's final mistake. Is the truth more important than peace? I put the letter down, turning to look out the window. I saw Anna's image. Cold. Respectable. Successful. She built her life on a false foundation. Would pulling that foundation out cause her to collapse? But if I don't do it, I will let Anna marry, carrying the burden of misunderstanding. Her coldness will become part of that marriage. Sarah wrote, she needs to know. That is my mission. Not to vindicate myself, but to fulfill my wife's final wish. I must carry this letter. It is no longer mine. It is Anna's. I carefully folded the letter. I put it into a new, simple white envelope. I didn't seal it. Anna must be the one to do that. I walked out of the kitchen, carrying the envelope. In the living room, my best suit jacket was still hanging. The suit I hadn't worn since Sarah's funeral. I touched the wool fabric. It felt unfamiliar. I had to face Anna's pain. But I couldn't go there as a rejected father. I had to go as a messenger, carrying a 30-year-old message. I placed the envelope into the inside pocket of the jacket. The feel of the thin paper against my chest. Outside, cars drove past. The sound of normal life. But for me, everything had changed. I had a purpose. An involuntary visit. I have to drive to that large, modern house. And I know I don't have much time. The wedding is approaching. My best suit jacket still carried the pungent smell of naphthalene. A scent I hadn't smelled in years. It felt as if I was wearing another man. I placed the envelope into the inside coat pocket. Thin paper. I could feel it through the lining. Like a small wound, carefully bandaged. I drove my old truck. It rattled and coughed as I passed through the new, flat asphalt roads. My truck belonged to gravel and silence. The place I was going was different. It was a neighborhood of large, modern homes. Glass, steel, and light. There was no dust here. No decay. Only precision and exposed success. Anna's fiancé's house, Robert. It wasn't a home. It was a structure. A large white box, cut by window panes without curtains. I parked on the edge of the road, far from the other expensive, glossy cars. My truck looked like it had lost its way. I hadn't called ahead. This was a severe breach of etiquette. I knew it. But I wasn't here for a party. I was here to deliver a letter. I walked up the stone pathway. My steps were slow and deliberate. I felt as if I was stepping onto a stage where I didn't know the script. Laughter. Soft music. They escaped from the open windows, filtered through the afternoon air. It was the laughter of comfort and certainty. I pressed the doorbell. The chime wasn't the familiar ding-dong. It was a low, resonant electronic tone. Very modern. I waited. The feeling of the cold sun on my skin. The door opened. The man standing at the door. Robert's father. His name was Mr. Harrison. He wore a navy blue polo shirt, crisply ironed. He looked at me. Not recognition, but a quick scan. He was appraising me, my old suit jacket, my face. Discreet annoyance. That's how the wealthy express annoyance. They don't frown. They just become slightly more rigid. Yes, his voice was low, trained. I am William, I said. My voice was a little hoarse. I hadn't used it much. I am Anna's father. Mr. Harrison didn't change his expression. Just an almost imperceptible raise of the eyebrow. Ah. Mr. William, he said, but my name sounded like a foreign word. I'm afraid this is a private rehearsal. We weren't expecting anyone else. I understand, I said. I didn't try to step inside. I just stood there. I didn't come to stay. I just need to see Anna for a minute. Mr. Harrison smiled. But not with his eyes. The smile only touched his lips. I'm sure you understand. Anna is very busy. The dress fitting. A lot of things to get just right. Perhaps you should have called first. He was trying to make me the one in the wrong. A breach of etiquette. And I was in the wrong. I don't have much time, I said. And neither does she. This is an old matter. It won't wait. I looked over his shoulder. The house was deep. I could see the metallic sheen of decorations and the moving shadows of people. Mr. Harrison started to close the door. Very slowly. Very politely. Very decisively. I apologize, William. I have to be civilized. Today is the bride's day. When the door was only a small gap away from closing, I knew I had to act. I held out my hand. I didn't push the door. I merely touched it. A small gesture. Mr. Harrison, I said, my voice low and firm. I didn't shout. I just made my words carry weight. I didn't come to cause trouble. But I cannot let my daughter marry with a secret her mother wanted her to know. That sentence made him stop. A secret. Her mother. He frowned. This time it was real. What are you talking about? I am talking about the truth, I said, looking straight into his eyes. And the truth is not always polite. I took a step back, but I put my foot across the threshold. If you won't allow me to see her, I will wait here. And I will let you know, I will not leave until I give this to her. I put my hand into my coat pocket. I didn't pull the envelope out. I merely touched it. Mr. Harrison considered. A man standing outside the door, holding an unknown secret, is better dealt with inside. He sighed. A sigh of mere annoyance. All right. Follow me, he said. But only for 1 minute. And absolutely no scene. He opened the door wide. I stepped inside. The marble floor. Cold. Under my feet, there was no creaking. Only silence. The air inside the house smelled of expensive scented candles and unresolved tension. Mr. Harrison walked ahead of me, his pace quick. I followed, slowly. We passed through a large hall. There were women. Laughing, raising glasses. They all looked at me. Curiosity. Confusion. I was an abnormality in this perfect setting. And then I saw her. Anna. Standing at the end of the room, under the white light of a large window. She was wearing the wedding dress. Pure white, flowing down to the floor. She looked like a sculpted statue. When she turned, her eyes skimmed over me. Coldness. But this time, it was mixed with a flicker of surprise. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. Mr. Harrison went to Anna's side, his voice low, Anna. Your father is here. He says he has an emergency. Anna looked at me. Her eyes were complete distance. I didn't come to apologize. I didn't come to justify. I took a step forward, my hand still resting on the envelope in my coat pocket. This is the moment. There is no escape. The letter will change everything. Can I break through that coldness to do what needs to be done? In that instant, the pure white light from Anna's wedding dress almost blinded me. It was too great a contrast to the smoky, gray-brown of my old suit jacket. She stood there. Perfect. Like a statue carved from ice. I had expected rage. An outburst. But all I received was her coldness. Her gaze skimmed over me. Like looking through a dirty window. There was no acknowledgement beyond annoyance. I felt like I didn't belong in this place. The laughter of the other women. Very distant. Very faint. But it enclosed us, isolating us in our own silence. Mr. Harrison, the groom's father, stepped to Anna's side. He placed a hand on her arm, a gesture of possession and protection. He didn't look at me. He whispered to Anna, a low voice that sounded like a reminder of her position. Anna nodded. Very slightly. Her restraint was chilling. She turned back to me, and this time, she managed a social smile. But the smile did not reach her eyes. "Thank you for coming, Dad," she said. Her voice was flat. Like still water. "I'm sorry I don't have time. I'm very busy. Everything has to be precise." "I understand," I said. My voice was husky. I couldn't make it any louder. I looked at her. Looked at the daughter I hadn't raised. 3 years. That was the last time. She had said I chose to run away. Mr. Harrison began to politely usher me out. He didn't touch me, but he shifted his body, creating an invisible barrier. "William. I'm sure anything you need to say can wait until after the wedding. Anna will have more free time." "It can't wait," I said. I stood my ground. Feeling the pressure of false civility. This wasn't an argument. This was a delivery. I slowly reached into my coat pocket. The gesture was small, but it caught Anna's attention. I pulled out the simple white envelope. It was slightly creased from being in my pocket. I didn't hand it to Anna. I walked to the nearest decorative table. It was a small table, holding a vase of white carnations. I placed the envelope on the table. Very carefully. The sound of the paper hitting the polished wood was almost inaudible. But it was the loudest sound in that room. Everyone seemed to stop. The music was suddenly overshadowed by the tension. I turned back. I didn't look at Mr. Harrison. I only looked at Anna. Her gaze had lifted from my face, locked onto the envelope. She recognized something. Or she sensed its difference. An object that didn't fit in that perfect room. "This is from your mother," I said. My voice was low. Almost a whisper. "She wanted you to know the truth." Silence. A heavy silence. The smile on Anna's lips vanished. Not slowly. It collapsed. Like a fractured mirror. Mr. Harrison started to speak. "Anna, don't let him." Anna didn't hear him. She wasn't looking at me. She only looked at the envelope. It was a letter from the dead. That was instantly clear. I knew I didn't need to say anything more. My words had done their work. I felt a strange sense of relief. The heaviness I had carried for 30 years was set down. But it had been placed on Anna's shoulders. Anna took one step forward. Her white dress rustled. The sound was sudden and strong. She held out her hand. Long, slender fingers. Her hand hovered over the envelope. She didn't touch it. The struggle in her eyes. Confront the lie that built her life, or let it lie undisturbed. She had to choose between the safety of coldness and the chaos of truth. Anna took a deep breath, like someone about to dive into cold water. She didn't touch the envelope. She looked at me. For the first time. Her eyes were no longer cold. They were empty. Filled with fear. You waited 30 years, William, she said. She used my given name. You waited 30 years to give me this. It was a cruel question. A justification for her coldness. Your mother couldn't send it, I said. I wasn't defensive. I just spoke the truth. She died 2 days after she wrote it. I found it yesterday. She didn't say anything more. Did she not believe me, or was she considering? She turned her back. Turned her back on me, turned her back on the letter. Turned her back on the truth. Father, she said to Mr. Harrison, her voice once again cold and controlled. Please see William out. And take that away. No, I said. I didn't raise my voice. That is yours. Your mother wanted you to have it. I looked at the envelope. It still lay there, white and solitary on the lavish table. Anna didn't look back. She was speaking to the bridesmaid about the drape of the dress. I turned away. Mr. Harrison no longer needed to push me. I walked out of the room, feeling the gaze of everyone on my back. I had done what I had to do. I had carried out Sarah's wish. But I had left a burden. A time bomb. I don't know when she will open it. But I know that envelope won't stay on that table forever.